In this video, we are exploring how Agile teams get ready for a PI planning meeting. We learned about the program backlog getting refined and getting prepared for upcoming PI planning meeting, but at the same time, we also need to make the Agile teams ready with their preparation, with their understanding of those program backlog items so that they can do a good contribution in the PI planning meeting. So right now, we are exploring during innovation and planning iteration, each teams will get the first week for getting ready for a PI planning meeting. In the second week, all these teams will participate in a PI planning meeting. So what kind of activities, what kind of an exploration the team should do here? In this video, we are exploring those activities. Now the first confusion may come in that we may got 10 features. Just for an example, we are starting with the 10 features which are expected to get planned in a PI planning meeting. So I am using the word expected because the plan will only come to know, we will come to know after doing a PI planning meeting, but from product management point of view, from a prioritization point of view, these are the features which looks probably coming in the next PI planning or in the upcoming PI planning meeting. So product management may do some kind of a collaborative activities with the team level product owners, where they discuss all these features which are expected to come and may also identify tentatively which team probably wants to work on these features. So not each team will work on all the 10 features. A particular team may probably work on 1 or 2 features, 3 features depending upon their skills, their team composition, their past history, the product owner's familiarity with the concept and the area in which these features are heading towards. So based on your Agile release train composition and history, you need to come up with some mechanism which helps you in identifying which team probably will work on a which particular feature. So again, I am using a word probably because the final mapping of a feature or the work to an Agile team will happen in a PI planning meeting. Right now what we are doing is, we are doing preparation for it. So we start with those probable features which will come to a particular Agile release train. So with the briefing which is given by product management to the product owners, sometimes these briefings may get posted in the form of some communication which might be available to all the Agile release trains. Yeah, so means all the Agile teams which are participating in Agile release train may get familiarity with all those features which are expected to come in upcoming PI planning meeting. So based on the history, based on the understanding, based on the briefing, my team might pick up few features. And you know that these are the 3 features which probably will get assigned or which will probably get picked by my team, so better I get ready. So during this preparation for PI planning meeting, my team will work on understanding these program backlog items, these features. Some program backlog items could be enablers also. So my team will spend time in understanding what are the details of it, and my team, individual team, will create small user stories out of those features. So these features get implemented incrementally with the help of user stories, and we need to have an incremental approach to achieve the features acceptance criteria. So teams are expected to look into the features and acceptance criteria and slice those features into user story. This activity is usually facilitated and coordinated by product owner, a team level product owner, and team members are expected to contribute and talk about various possible acceptance criteria, various possible dependencies, various possible exploration they need to do in order to understand that particular feature and user story well. Now based on the understanding and exploration of those user stories, the teams are also expected to estimate those user stories. Now you may say, okay, but the features were already estimated before. Why we are doing estimation here? So the estimation which was done for a program backlog, the objective of that estimation was prioritization of a program backlog, understanding is this feature good enough, small enough to fit into a one Agile release train for a one PI. But here we are doing estimation to understand at a story level based on team's understanding of that particular user story, which is a bottom-up estimate. And this is the estimate which team probably will use while doing their PI planning meeting. Now, is there something which can change in a PI planning meeting? The answer is yes. An estimation or a refinement of these features which are looked into in the form of user stories can be done at multiple places. I usually talk about these three stages. I call them A stage, B stage and C stage. C stage is something when we are running iterations, when we are doing team backlog refinement. So, this is the another possible space where some details may get added. So, what is the significance of these A stage, B stage and C stage user stories and estimations related to a particular feature? At a stage, I want to be sufficiently ready for my PI planning meeting so that I can plan my work based on my capacity inside the PI planning meeting. So, in order to do that, an agile team is expected to divide the feature, decompose the feature into multiple user stories and estimate them. Now, when I go into a PI planning meeting, I may get a bigger view. I may discover based on the interaction which is happening with the whole agile release train, I may discover new dependencies, I may discover new stories, and I may want to revisit my story size, I may want to create more user stories there. There is a possibility some part of the feature which was initially planned to the other team may come to me and I need to revisit those estimations as well. So, there is a possibility I end up revisiting my estimates and user story at a B stage. When I have picked up those elements, those particular feature in my PI planning meeting and they got assigned to me, later on when I am incrementally developing those user stories, I may discover a need of an enabler, I may discover that there is a need of redefining or splitting a particular user story, and I may do it in the form of refining my team backlog items. So, we are starting refinement here, we will continue doing it at a later stage. Why I need to speak about all A, B, C stage? Because you should not get an assumption that, oh, I need to have a very well refined user stories in a stage itself, else I won't be able to do a PI planning meeting. So, that is not the objective. At the same time, if I do not see the features, I do not look at a user stories, I do not understand and do exploration related to those user stories, I do not run some enablers, spikes related to that user story, I might not be in a position to have a fair understanding of a feature and do a commitment related to that particular feature development during PI planning meeting. So, if I summarize it back and look the whole thing in the summary level, what I can say here is that the readiness which my team is doing for PI planning meeting is understanding the feature, splitting into a user stories, estimating those user stories, in some cases might be reaching to an acceptance criteria, not necessarily all user stories will get added acceptance criteria. I may do it at a B or C stage usually, but I need to understand those user stories fairly so that I can estimate them. I need to discover dependencies so that I can plan about them when I am doing PI planning meeting, and in order to discover those dependencies, I may need to run some exploration, some experiments related to code study, related to some learning on the technology, which may help me in understanding how this whole thing will get implemented so that I can have a more integrated planning as well as integrated feedback when I am going for a PI planning meeting. This exploration may also result into learning to the product management as well as product owner. They may need to revisit the feature as well. Sometime they may result into splitting that particular feature because you may discover, oh, it was looking sized in a feature to you, but it is not, yeah, because we have a new learning, you probably need to split that particular feature. So, there is a possibility the feedback going back into the program backlog, but the conversation continues and a good integrated conversation will happen inside the PI planning meeting, but we should be ready for our PI planning meeting by spending enough time in innovation and planning iteration.